I'm John Comerford,
I'm Erica Comerford.
and we've been coming to Victory for about 2 years, and this is our story. We both grew up in the Catholic Church, and for me, as an adolescent, started to stray from that. I did not feel like there was much for me there. My family was very religious, and really kind of my whole generation, my siblings and my cousins, none of them were very involved in the church. There wasn't much for us there.
When I was growing up, my parents would go to church on Christmas and Easter and pretty much never in between. But my grandma went every day almost, definitely every Sunday and many days throughout the week. And that actually became a really good bonding opportunity for me with my grandma, as she would take me to church. So at a certain point, I started asking her if she could come, pick me up to take me with her. And then I got involved in the youth group, and church really became something impactful to me. I mean, the faith that I had as I was growing up, I think really had an impact on my place in the world, especially during difficult times, teen years, and just, difficult upbringing or home life. But for me, I think, going to college and becoming a young adult, that faith was not very deeply rooted and certainly was not on a foundational level for me. And so it just became really easy to kind of stray from that. I think also at that time, there was a lot in the news about kind of some scandals within the Catholic Church. We kind of developed, I don't want to say we, but I developed some distrust, I think, of the church and kind of, God's truth being flexible based on modern politics. And then I also was concerned with kind of the hierarchy and the governance of the church and feeling like it was prone to corruption. And especially financially, I felt like there was not a lot of faith in giving. It was more obligation and ritual, and that did not resonate with me. And so I think my faith really started to kind of fall apart under the weight of some of the, doubts and criticisms. It's not that I lost my faith in God, but I did not feel that I wanted to or should be participating in any form of religion at that point.
For me, I felt like I did not have a personal connection with God. It felt very institutional and formal, and that just didn't resonate with me. And then when we met, I feel like we were both had some form of faith, but we had no church. And
when we were dating, our faith was not a big part of our discussion. I think beyond the fact that it was interesting that we had both been raised Catholic, but neither of us had an interest or desire to continue practicing that faith within the Catholic Church. And so I don't even think, as we were talking about starting our family, that we had much thought or discussion about the role that faith might play in raising our kids or anything like that.
No, I think it was maybe after the birth of our first that we started feeling a pull to find a church, to find more community, and to strengthen our faith.
Yeah, and I think the parts that I really had enjoyed about my faith growing up, I wanted our kids to have that peace and reassurance, but didn't really know how to teach them to find it if not in the institution that we were raised in. And so I think after our oldest, our daughter, Melanie, was born, we tried to go back to the Catholic Church with my grandma. And so that was another great experience of bonding, now 3 generations. But it still didn't feel right. And it felt forced and like we were going through the rituals again, yeah. But without that faith, that relationship, the connection that we were looking for. So then I think we stopped going completely. for a couple of years. And then I think it was after our second child was born, Declan, that we kind of felt that stirring again of like, okay, we got to, we got to figure this out. Like, we can't keep letting life get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so we tried our first non-denominational church, which was, I think, the only one that we really knew of. We drove by it quite a bit at the time. It was a ginormous church. I think we liked it better than the Catholic Church. But because it was so large, it was so impersonal.
It was easy to hide in the back.
Yeah.
And
we weren't rooted in a community. It was just us attending or not attending. And if we didn't attend, no one noticed. It didn't matter. And so it became easy to just say, I don't think that's really for us either, and stop going.
2 kids, and about 7 years later, we tried another church. And again, this was another large church. Felt a little more like there was a community there. I still don't think we made any connection. I don't remember a small group.
We had an acquaintance that went there, and so that's kind of how we found it. But not a friend, but at least some form of connection. And our kids got, kind of rooted, I would say, to some extent in the youth program. And they seemed to enjoy it and asked us if we could keep going. And so we did go pretty much every Sunday for maybe 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the time of year that we happened to start going was a season of kind of end of the year heavy requests for giving. And so there was a lot of talk of giving and, reliance on and trust in God to, provide, but making financial requests of us. And that's not a problem, except I think it played to our skepticism.
Absolutely.
And some of our concern from our experience growing up, to members of churches maybe just being donors and the message being targeted to the donors. And so there was a level of distrust, I think, that was just kind of under the surface of, can we kind of surrender our heart to the message, or are we just getting suckered in?
So I think we trailed off and we just stopped attending that church. Again, we didn't have a personal connection there. We were not involved. We weren't in a small group. It was easy to just not go this week and then maybe go next week, and then eventually we stopped going altogether.
And also, I think I started to have some concerns because we had that skepticism of, can we trust this or not? It's not that we distrusted it, but we had some doubts creeping in.
Mm-hmm.
And then our kids would come home from, their youth services and talk about how they would win prizes if they invited friends and things like that. And so again, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but in our form of kind of doubt and skepticism at that time, I think it also, kind of deepened that doubt of, are they just looking for more people to come in and be donors? And so I think that contributed to us just saying, let's just take a break.
Mm-hmm. So about 5 years later, our kids were attending a homeschool group, mm-hmm. and our daughter made a friend there who attends Victory.
Yeah, the Perry family.
That's right.
They, as Melanie and their daughter became friends, they would have sleepovers on the weekends, and Melanie was invited to attend church with them here at Victory, on Sunday mornings. And so she went a few times and I think really enjoyed it. And eventually, I think the next big transition for us was the middle school winter retreat. And Melanie asked if she could go, and we said sure. We felt that it was a good environment for her and that we knew her friend would be there. We felt comfortable with that. And so she went to the winter retreat and loved it and had a great time. Also, I think Zach had a plan that worked really well to invite all attendees at the winter retreat to come back that next Sunday morning. And if they did, they could get a big discount code for Camp Allendale that summer. And my daughter already knew that that's what that she would want to go to Allendale. And so she said, if you just take me this day, then we can get this, this code for Camp Allendale. And so we agreed, and we did. But we let her go in, and I think even her siblings, and we stayed in the car during service, and we just were not really, I think, interested in taking another step into another church at that point, especially when we just felt kind of burned out and
still skeptical, still reluctant.
Not skeptical of God, but of religion, and didn't understand that there could be a difference necessarily. Flash forward to after summer camp at Allendale, and actually all 4 of our kids ended up attending and loved it, of course. And afterwards, I remember standing in the garage, and Melanie, the oldest, had her little backpack from camp on, and she looked at me, and she kind of timidly but strongly said, "Mom, I really want our family to start going to Victory. Can we do that?" And I just looked in her eyes, and I didn't want to. I was pretty comfortable in our life at that point and really didn't want to pursue another church and another challenge to our faith and another disappointment and things like that. But I looked in her eyes and could not come up with a single reason to justifiably say no to her. And so I said, "I'll talk to your dad, and then we'll talk about it." And I think shortly after that, we started coming, not every Sunday, but most Sundays. But the kids would go inside, and
we would stay in the car.
And we would stay in the car.
And there were several services that we watched online.
Yep.
And we started warming to the idea of actually entering the building. And
I think we really liked the message. It resonated with us, and it was the missing piece that we had been looking for compared to, the church we grew up in. But there were other parts that we were completely out of our territory. We grew up in a very traditional church, and so, we would sing hymns, and there was maybe an organ. So the worship was definitely new to us, and it took some getting used to. We didn't dislike it, but it didn't feel like church. So coming from the Catholic faith, church was such a formal occurrence, an event, and we dressed up, and you don't dare come to church if you're not, in your Sunday best, and it was a very ritualistic. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that church had a certain feeling to it, and we loved the message at Victory, but it was so foreign compared to what we grew up knowing was church.
For me, church was always removed from the rest of my life.
Yes.
Church was on Sunday in your Sunday best, and then you left church and you went back to your life. So it was a very odd feeling to know that church could feel like a normal day.
And that's definitely a difference from when we started coming to Victory. That was the first time I ever felt that church and life blended together, and that it wasn't this event you go to on Sunday and then you leave and you forget about it for 6 more days until it's time to come back. We could feel a difference in our week. If we missed a Sunday, we could feel less peace and more chaos throughout the week. And we started really looking forward to Sunday and knowing that we would kind of get another dose of that peace. And it was really having an impact, I think, in the way that we were thinking, in the way that we interacted with others, the way we interacted with our kids.
I think we were also discussing so much more with our kids. We would go home on a Sunday and we would all talk about how service was, and we were discussing with our friends. We were making friends. We were actually, staying in the lobby instead of, beelining for the car as soon as everything was over.
Yeah.
And that was a new feeling.
And learning I mean, there's so much about the Bible that I never knew growing up. I could repeat prayers to you and could mostly understand what they meant, but I had no idea so many things that are in the Bible. And so, since our kids had never been exposed to it, it's been a really great opportunity for us to learn together and to ask questions and not be ashamed about what we don't know, but to want to learn more and know that God wants us to learn more.
Victory has made Scripture feel so much more accessible to me. I never had that connection growing up. Like I said, it always felt separate from the rest of my life. So at this point, we were attending regularly. The kids were definitely involved and feeling that pull to be baptized. And I think it was our oldest who first brought it up to us.
Yeah. She's always the one. So the oldest three, Melanie, Declan, and Jillian, all chose to be baptized about a year and a half ago. And it was a big deal. And we invited your dad, who is still in the Catholic Church, who was very supportive. And it was a great day. We loved it. I went through in the Catholic Church, I was baptized as a baby, and in my high school years went through the process of confirmation, which is essentially confirming your faith, that you're choosing to stay in the faith. And so I always felt like I didn't really see the need to be baptized as an adult, because I'd already made that acceptance of Jesus as my Savior, and and that nothing had changed.
I had been baptized as an infant and gone through the sacraments of the Catholic Church up until confirmation. And then when I went through confirmation, they were describing it to me as basically testifying before the church about your beliefs. And I didn't feel as though I could do that. And I dropped out. I was never confirmed. It was a point of contention in my family, especially with my parents. It was just, no one had done that before. Everyone had gone along with the program. So that was definitely a separation between me and the Catholic Church as a young man.
So then I think at this point in our faith journey at Victory, we felt like we should probably, like, this wasn't the same faith that I had as a teenager, and certainly not the same faith that you had had. And so one day during service, after service, we approached Danny and asked him to baptize us, and we did it right then and there. And best decision ever, because it definitely made a difference, and I certainly felt that feeling of going into the water and coming up a new person and a new outlook, and everything was different for me.
For me as well. I just felt a connection with Jesus and felt that my faith was strengthened so much through this church, but also through my own personal decisions. Whereas I had never felt that before. I had never felt like I had a personal relationship with God. And, that Victory changed that for me. I thought I needed to be in a certain place before I could be baptized. I was in this mindset of, my faith is not there yet. I'm not ready. And I think a lot of that came from in early adulthood, especially after essentially leaving the Catholic Church, not being confirmed, and kind of using that to make the statement as I'm no longer a believer. I mean, I was pretty much not necessarily, I was on the verge of atheism. And I would, my father said to me, well, if you're not going to be confirmed, I only ask that you explore your faith. And so I would read about Eastern philosophies and, thinking that I'm going to be this, enlightened person, which I think became a little bit of a block to come back to Christ and to see Christianity as my home, and to see the church as my home. And so I think the day we got baptized and Danny said, that baptism can be the beginning for you. It is, you are refreshed, you are anew. That really resonated with me because I had felt like there were things that I needed to do before I could do that, before I would be worthy enough to be baptized. And the day we made that decision, I think, was a huge change in my outlook, and has resonated ever since. Before that day, I had felt that in order to be baptized, I had to have some sort of sign, some sort of message. I thought the Holy Spirit had to speak to me directly before I could make the decision to be baptized. And so it was like a revelation to me that day, when Danny said that it is the beginning, and that there's no prerequisite, there's no requirement to be baptized. All you have to do is receive Jesus and start your life fresh that day. Everything seemed to happen rather quickly at that point, as we felt a part of this community, of this church. All the other aspects of it really fell into place for us. Mm-hmm. Some more easily than others. When we discussed tithing, I still was reluctant, and I still had, a bit of skepticism, and we really had a long conversation about it, and about, how much it represents our faith. Mm. And how, we are trusting God to care for us, and we are caring for others, and we are supporting the church, and God is supporting us. And after we made that decision, I never really thought about it again. I mean, it was just something that we do. And
never thought about it in terms of questioning whether mm-hmm. or not we would do it, but I think we think about it often and wish that we could do more even, and see the impact. And so that was the big difference for us, I think, of Victory compared to any other church we'd ever participated in, is that at Victory, we've been through a couple above and beyond seasons and year-end givings and Easter givings, and I've never, not once, felt skeptical or challenged or distrustful, because Victory does such a good job of partnering with organizations in the community, of showing in church the difference that Victory's making. And so it's not just a step in faith that your church leaders are doing what they say they're going to do. We get to witness it, and we get to be part of it. And so we have, joined various teams of serving at Victory over time. We participated in the Thanksgiving food drive. We've participated in Pack Away Hunger twice now, and other kinds of incentives where we can see the impact that we are having and that the church is having in the community. And that has made it so easy to place our faith in God and giving to Victory, because we know that Victory is following God's plan for that money.
And in a way, for me, it is seeing the impact in our life specifically, in our life personally, in the change that I've seen in myself. I feel like a different person. I feel like my life has changed, and it is easy to see the correlation that it is through what we're doing in the church and
through our faith.
Yeah.
Through our faith, because the more we have given of our time, of our money, to go sometimes beyond what we feel is possible, every time God's faithfulness shows up in maybe even that exact way or a different way, and a need is met, or a worry is quelled, or we just have constant assurance that we are being taken care of. I reached out to Chelsea and asked if there was anything I could do in the office or behind the scenes just to kind of help, tie together loose ends, all the things that I could potentially take off her plate that would free up her time and energy to focus on things that she's specifically good at. And so I think we started by myself and a couple of our kids would come in one day a week and just do some stuff on the back end and, pull props for the story that week, or, you know, stapling papers, or, things like that. Yeah, cleaning out closets. And I really enjoyed that because I felt like it was helping free Chelsea up to do more of the things that she specifically is good at. And it was just a way for us to help contribute. But over time, I think through that role, we got to see some areas where, the early childhood and kids ministry had needs that needed filled. And even though I wasn't really comfortable to volunteer to, be in a teaching capacity or even an assistant capacity, I knew that we could do it. And so we stepped outside of our comfort zone and I said, okay, Chelsea, go ahead and put us where you need us. And I think at first it was like once or twice a month, and always together and always with one of our kids assisting us. And now I think we've told them multiple times, like, just put us wherever, in whatever situation, and we'll do it, because we really believe that what we're doing and what all of us are doing is making an impact. And specifically, I think if you really love and appreciate something, we all have a responsibility to contribute to the continued success of that thing. And so if I want Victory to keep being amazing for myself and my kids and future generations, and if I want to keep inviting friends because I know it can be life-changing for them, then we have to all chip in to make it remain what's so impactful to us.
Well, so our kids had been serving in elementary, middle school, tech booth.
I was a worship leader in the elementary service.
Dancing.
Camp Allendale as counselors.
Yes. And to see the joy and the reward that they got from that was just another piece of the puzzle to confirm that we are in the right place and that this is
having an impact not just on us and not just on our kids, but maybe on their kids and their friends when they invite their friends to come to church on Sunday, and when they talk about how much they love our church or how much they value their relationship with God to their friends and to family members. And we love Victory, and I feel like we talk about it often with a lot of people, which is hard to imagine if you go back to the people that we were just even 3-4 years ago. I would never have believed that we would be serving in this capacity, that we would be tithing regularly, that we would be attending regularly, that we'd be inviting other people, that
our kids would be as involved as they are.
Yeah, we have kids who are even considering going into ministry themselves. So it's crazy the difference a couple years can make and how much of an impact your faith and specifically your relationship with God and that faithfulness and the love and the grace and the hope and the mercy that relationship can give you, that you just can't find anywhere else, and that you can try using a million other things to fill that hole that only Jesus can fill.
Well said.
Okay.